interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
In breaking news today, the British royal family have committed an embarrassing typo, misspelling Montecito in their line of succession as Sussex. Wait, we're sure it's not just our teleprompter again, right? Before I get to today's main topic, I would like to proffer my deepest condolences to the men, women, and children of the United Kingdom. For you will soon be graced by the presence of the Duke and Duchess of Montecito for the King's coronation. Honestly, the very thought of it is enough to make one sick. It's the way I felt when I saw them at the Windsor walkabout with Catherine and William. I just find it incredibly disappointing that they were even invited to begin with. Now, I've made a video before about this entire topic of why the king shouldn't be inviting the Sussexes, but now that it's actually been done, I honestly just don't know what he's playing at. It just seems like a slap in William's face and a slap in the face of the king's subjects, the people of the United Kingdom, because you have all made it absolutely clear that an overwhelming majority do not want to see Meghan and Harry at the coronation. The thing is, the king had a perfectly legitimate reason not to invite them after the Netflix and fiasco. I truly believe most people would not have questioned it. It would make perfect sense. What doesn't make sense is him doing the opposite. But that's all I have to say about this topic for now, and let's get straight into today's main topic, the newly minted Prince and Princess of Montecito. Before I go any further, I would like to make it very clear that these two children are innocent in all of this, and any negativity or criticism mentioned in this video is directed at their parents. So I woke up Thursday morning, our time in Australia, way ahead of the rest of you. You were still on your Wednesday, to the news that Princess Lilibet has been christened by the Archbishop of LA, I suppose, of California. And so she is now officially Princess Lilibet Diana, and of course her brother is Prince Archie. They've since released a statement which reads, "The children's titles have been a birthright since their grandfather became monarch. This matter has been settled for some time in alignment with Buckingham Palace." And so it has, because if you head on to the official royal family website, you will see that both titles have indeed been updated to reflect this change. Also, I coincidentally happened to notice that Prince Andrew is right there in the line of succession, which, judging by his actual standing in the royal family, having lost all of his military honors and patronages, and effectively being exiled from royal life, the fact that he's still there can have the potential to diminish the overall significance of this line of succession thing. So for anyone getting too mad about this, because these two kids clearly, are foreign citizens at this point, just think about that. Prince Andrew is on it. Heck, what am I saying? Harry is on it. So from the statement, obviously this has been, in the works for a while now. And I suppose it kind of explains why Meghan always just seems so pleased with herself. Like the cat that got the cream. Like there's something that the rest of us don't know about that she would think about gleefully. I guess she knew all along that this was in the bag. Because now she has played the game and has forever sealed her connection to the royal family, regardless of what ends up happening between her and Harry. Well played, Meghan. Well played. But is anyone actually surprised by this? Did anyone actually think that this woman, with her absolute obsession with being royal, did you really think she would let her children forego their titles while William and Catherine's children go about the world being referred to as their Royal Highnesses, Prince and Princess? You thought she'd let Lily grow up in the same world where her cousin Princess Charlotte would be the attention-grabbing royal while Lily was just a regular private citizen? Pfft, fat chance. So Lily was christened on the 3rd of March, by the way, on the Friday. And the very next day, on Saturday the 4th of March, Harry had his on-air monetized therapy session with Dr. Gabor Mate, which I've covered in my last video. He continued, along with Dr. Mate, to trash the royal family by talking about his inherited genetic pain and how he vowed to break that cycle with his own children. And yet, he very conveniently forgot to mention, as he sat there and listened to Dr. Mate talk about how he knows all about the royal family because he watched The Crown, that his own children now have royal titles of their own. So immediately after this news was announced, arguments over whether the Sussexes could even do this erupted all over the internet. Some were arguing that the Sussexes had absolutely no right to do this, and that it was only the king himself who could confer these titles upon their children. Now, this argument is false. According to the Letters Patent 1917, the children of sons of the sovereign shall have and at all times hold and enjoy the style, title, or attribute of royal highness with their titular dignity of prince or princess prefixed to their respective Christian names. Translation, these kids automatically gained the right to be referred to as prince and princess pretty much as soon as Charles became king. The one thing I'm not sure about is the HRH styling. The letters patent aren't silent on that. They do say yes, they get to be their Royal Highness. But an article written for Harper's Bazaar by none other than Omid Scobie himself states that since Harry's HRH title is in abeyance, effectively, he's not allowed to use it, the children won't be referred to in that way either. What seems more likely to me is they're probably officially HRH because I don't think their parents were stripped of that, but they may just not be allowed to use it. Now, the other and much more valid argument is that both these children are US citizens and residents. In fact, Lilibet was born in the United States. And Harry has claimed time and time again that he does not see any possibility or any future for him and his family in the UK, much less within the royal fold. Heck, now that Frogmore is gone, they've even threatened, through Omid Scobie, that King Charles may not even be able to see his grandchildren, since they have nowhere safe to go, which again, made a whole video about that. Please watch it if you haven't already. So naturally, people are questioning, prince and princess of what? Walgreens? And I agree. How many times do we have to remind these two that the Americans fought for their independence from the British monarchy, from the British Empire, all the way back in 1776. The whole point of that war was to free themselves of the monarchy and any connection to it. And yet here you have a Californian archbishop christening a US-born child as a British princess. Remember all those years ago in 2019 when Meghan and Harry were still working royals and they proudly announced, through Omid Scobie of course, that they will be foregoing a title for their son Archie because they wanted him to lead a private and normal life, free from the burden of public interest and the accessibility that a title invites? That didn't age well. Then we learned that they were offered a title of the Earl of Dumbarton, one of them, which they turned down because Meghan thought that the title was too close to the word dumb. Translation, his cousins are prince and princess, therefore I will accept nothing less for my child. Then we hear this thing, I think, from Harry, where he wants to wait until his children are old enough to decide for themselves whether they want a title or not. Considering they're 4 and 2 years old, they must be very mature for their age. Fast forward to March 2021. Yes, you know where I'm going with this. The Oprah interview, where Meghan claimed that the royal family was denying a title for Archie altogether.
So we had in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
Now, based on everything we know about her, I believe that she made that claim maliciously, knowing that it's false, because she referenced the letters patent in that interview, and therefore she knew exactly why her children, or Archie at the time, still wasn't styled or titled as a prince, because the queen was still alive and she was his great-grandmother rather than his grandmother. All they had to do was wait until the queen passed away, wait for Charles to ascend the throne, and boom. So she certainly can't claim ignorance after referencing the letters patent herself. which is all the more proof that she said this maliciously, knowing that it would infuriate the world. What I think happened was, at that point, the motivation for this falsehood was the seething jealousy that Meghan felt towards Catherine and William, whose children were indeed already prince and princess, because the Queen intervened back in 2012 and bestowed that honor upon their children, even though they're her great-grandchildren. And so naturally, Meghan being Meghan, she went, well, their kids aren't better than mine. Why do Harry's nephews get to be prince and princess when my children can't? So I believe that Meghan expected the same to be done to her children. And when it wasn't, she stank up a fuss on air and did the worst thing she could possibly think of doing at the time. Falsely accused the family of being racist. Which makes me wonder, now that we're here, now that we know the truth, that all along her children were going to inherit these titles as soon as Charles became king, it really makes you wonder, has this woman no shame? Has she no dignity? Here she is, publicly announcing now that both her children are officially prince and princess, despite publicly claiming that the racist royal family denied these titles to her children. It's just shameless. It's shameless because she dares show her face after she herself has now contributed to the mountain of evidence against her, painting her out to be the malicious, hypocritical liar that she is. And there she goes, prancing around with that painfully plastered grin on her face, as though she's on top of the world and beyond reproach. And her hapless husband going along with this, condoning it, it's just shameless. Honestly, if I were her kids, I would be embarrassed. Remember that time when Meghan and Harry produced and starred in this, little known Netflix reality show in which they dedicated 6 entire hours to trashing the monarchy and describing it as no different to the racist empire of old? Remember when Harry wrote an entire book in which he does much of the same except more? In which he calls his own father, the current monarch, a selfish liar who would sell his own children to make himself and his villainous wife look good? And remember when Meghan and Harry embarked on a still ongoing worldwide victimhood tour in which they continue to affirm every single accusation they've ever lobbed at the royal family, apart from the racism one, of course. That never happened. And get this is the kicker, okay? Remember when Harry stated solemnly on the Oprah interview that he was trapped his entire life in the royal family, but he just didn't know it? Until Meghan, the warrior angel, came along and plucked him from their clutches, saving him for all of eternity. So pray tell us then, why are they so adamant on not only hanging on to their own titles, but bestowing the same horrific burden, according to them, on their 2 innocent children? If the monarchy is truly the Empire 2.0, and you consider your children to be of mixed race, why affiliate them with an institution that you find so repellent as to wage an endless war against it? These are all rhetorical questions, of course, because we all know the answers. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. It's the same reason Meghan agreed to marry into this Empire 2.0, despite being of African heritage, and despite knowing about its questionable past. Because it's the first and only time in her almost 40 years when she met Harry that she became relevant. Without these titles, heck, without Harry, she would sink back into the obscurity that she came from. And she'll be damned before she ever lets that happen again. What's interesting is that last September, the Queen of Denmark stripped her own grandchildren of their titles. And these children are far older than Archie and Lilibet, so they've lived a life with these titles. And despite the backlash, she has stood by her decision. So many are saying that King Charles should have done the same thing. He should have stepped in as soon as he became monarch, tweaked the letters patent, or perhaps even just declared that only senior working royals and their children are entitled to having a royal title. And I'd say I agree. Because honestly, when you look at that line of succession on their website and you see Harry, and basically 2 American children, it kind of just takes away from the legitimacy of it all. And before anyone says the children are innocent of all of this and therefore shouldn't be stripped of their titles, I agree they're innocent. But their parents made their bed. And no one protested and said, oh no, the children are innocent, when Edward VIII, who didn't have kids, but bear with me, was forced to relinquish the rights of his potential heirs as future successors of the throne. So he and his entire bloodline was wiped out from the line of succession purely because he was forced to abdicate to marry the woman he loved. I've made a couple of videos by now about Wallace and Edward, so if you want more information about their story, you can watch them or, do your own research. But Edward never wanted to abdicate. He was hoping to make Wallace his queen. And yet here we have this man, Harry, who willingly defected, in a sense, not only turning his back on his country, but continuing to disparage it to this very day. So in what world does it make sense for him and his bloodline to even be included in the line of succession? All I can say is, with parents like these, Archie and Lily, I wish you all the best. Speaking of kings, where's my cat?